All right, I wanted to touch with you guys on the new StarHopper and the SpaceX plans to take people to Mars. I've had a lot of people ask me, well, how do I think that, we didn't go to the moon when there's things on Mars, like the Mars rover? And I usually just respond to them with, are you fucking serious? Like, you realize that the Mars climate and everything that they're showing there is identical to the Atacama Desert down in Chile. So obviously, as the radiant environment is the same, the oxygen and the atmosphere levels are the same, the stone is the same, everything is the same down there as it would be on Mars. They are launching things, and it goes around the Earth and they deploy it and it falls back down to Earth, and then they remote control it and try to find out whether or not they could use it on something that is identical as the Atacama Desert. So there isn't anything on Mars. There aren't anything, Juno isn't around, it's not around Jupiter. These things are in the exosphere and they are monitoring to the best of their abilities. They're all telescope based on Earth or within the lower to mid-atmospheric layers. This is very easily shown because at the same time that we launch things that always go all around the galaxies and check out everything from Voyager to Juno to all of their Pluto missions, from the Event Horizon missions, all this type of stuff. At the same time, if you note, JAXA will put out identical tools that are supposed to study things like Jupiter's magnetosphere and the ionic bands and reconnective points and all this type of stuff, gamma and X-ray background from cosmic radiation, things like that. All of them, like you'll look at the Astro programs and you'll see that JAXA that same month launched several identical satellites into the mesosphere. And they studied Jupiter and everything exactly the same as Juno, but they're all mesosphere-based satellites. So it's interesting that the rest of the world is only sending stuff into low Earth orbit, doing the exact same thing that we're doing while we say that we're flying around the cosmos, all Carl Sagan-like. So, bottom line, there's nothing out there. Everything is still confined within the magnetosphere. That is what my videos in the previous ones show. If you haven't seen them, go watch them. Everything is covered. It shows you why the radiant environments of certain layers and areas, why it gets worse, why those ones keep us from being in most of them. It's very straightforward. They are not denying any of it. It is just a conflicting propaganda. They have to deal with what they said, but now they're doing what they're doing, and so we have to try to kind of even it out and not just say, we fucking lied back then, we kind of bullshitted. It's the X-ray looking through your feet or that duck and cover, Bert the Turtle bullshit. It's common American practice for any of our political systems to use against the dominant society. All of you free thinkers and all of you, smart and up-and-coming fucking geniuses. So every time you guys think to yourselves, I'm smart, I got it all figured out, they're using you, and they're using you because you think you're smart, you got it all figured out. So, Blue Origins, they already did this. Everybody has already done what we're now learning how to do. Bottom line, if SpaceX has done it, it's because it's already been done by other companies. Like Russia has already created a propulsion system and used it successfully to save astronauts to pull them away from an exploding spacecraft. We're now testing it to figure out how to do it, because bottom line, we're not allowed to even try to do what they're doing unless we can do what they're doing. So, we're behind in everything. Jeff Bezos was the first one who made it possible for Elon Musk to do this and laughed in Michael Collins' face.
I think if you think back to the heyday of the 1960s and the Apollo program and all of that excitement, my gut instinct on this is that we as a civilization, we as humanity, pulled that moon landing way forward, out of sequence, from where it actually should have been.
Pretty much what I want to point out with this simple fact is this was Jeff Bezos, who was hired to do what SpaceX is doing right now and lead the next moon landing mission and Mars landing mission. However, this was the first and only interview that he had right after he was the first successful person to land a rocket on a celestial body, ours, and show that it could be done. NASA hired him, however, he had this interview, and after this interview, he was promptly fired, and Elon Musk of Tesla, the government buddy of theirs, has taken his place, and he now works for ESA and Roscosmos. So now he is working for the European nations and is focusing everything on low Earth orbit technologies and getting humans not only into the mesosphere so that everyone can discover low Earth orbit and microgravity, but also so that he can assist in greater propulsion and technologies that would assist in the grandeur of government owning low Earth orbit and having the ability to place large packages up there and it not be reliant on the shuttle. So all of these things, they've been done. If they haven't been done, they're being done right now in secret, such as the nuclear explosion that just happened over in Russia. They're working on creating vacuum shielding. So when we figure these things out, that's when you'll see them applied elsewhere, but then we will have been working on them and we'll be coming out with it. It's like the new 5G network. We don't have it. Everyone else does. We don't have gamma or X-ray telescopic capabilities yet, but we're going to talk a big game about all of their pictures and how we're affiliates because, you know, we got the pictures and we're presenting it. So NASA presents Russia's space science, or NASA presents India's space science, or NASA presents China's space science. But bottom line, that's just because NASA's fucking reporting it doesn't mean they had anything to do with it outside of claiming rights to being a part of space exploration. And so maybe they even contributed a couple of dollars in a grant, or they were like, you know, Tesla owns all the patents for radio, stuff like that. They had a little piece that was a part of it. So they're like, yeah, we helped make it up and send it up there and all of it. So it's us. And that's NASA's thing. That's what they do. This is another version of that. This fucking thing is not going to Mars. That's not going to send anyone to Mars. Bottom line, this is what the actual lander, if there was something Neil Armstrong was legitimately going to try to land on another celestial body, this is what it really would have looked like. Not the fucking thing that he crashed before and all that nonsense you see in the propaganda movies that are about him. That's nonsense. This is what it would actually take. That's why Jeff Bezos laughed in Michael Collins' face, because he said you couldn't have done it without all of the retro thrusters and all of the computer-controlled systems that we have today.
A gigantic effort with what is, in many ways, it should have been impossible. And they pulled it off with, you know, barely any computational power. They were still using slide rules. They couldn't numerically model in computers a lot of these important processes like combustion inside a rocket engine, which is still hard today, but we can do it a little bit. They didn't have computational fluid dynamics to really have everything had to be done in the wind tunnel. Nothing could be done.
So pretty much what he's saying here.
So I think the reason we've sort of taken a hiatus, maybe in part at least, is because we pulled that forward to a time when it should have been impossible. And then once it was done, kind of had to wait and let technology catch up.
That's what Neil Armstrong himself said as well, is it's just not possible until he had to do it. And of course, you know, in the videos he did it perfectly. But in real life, he was 230 miles out. That was just the habitat station for them, kind of like what the International Space Station is now. They were just using it to turn it around and live in that so that they could come back in the heat shield and ditch that thing up there. That's it. Or even bring it back if they needed to, a part of it, whatever. That was their whole plan, was to use it as a habitable station up in low Earth orbit. So when we created it, that's cool, it worked, but it was never actually functional, and it could never have the second stage rocket, the most powerful blah, 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 blah. What the fuck ever. That rocket is necessary just to get people 1,000 miles up. So when we have rockets that are up there, 1,000 miles up, and they're trying to do that Apollo 13 shit where they're, you know, flipping it around, but tanks end up blowing and we have to come back down. This is their best bet. Orion had no tanks. Russia's just created the robot that's going to be sent up there. Here is our best capabilities of creating a legitimate lander. This is the world working together on trying to create an atomic, a robot driven and based system that is all computer controlled, that we can shield well enough so that the neurology that we have just fail when we hit that height, it doesn't have, and it will be able to maintain its integrity and not lose its function, where our brains would shut down. But if we can create a system that doesn't shut down, then all we have to do is create the propulsion systems that will guide it down and up. We're talking about how we're going to ever bring something back from Mars. Well, this is the first step to bringing anything back from a floating asteroid, from the moon, from any other celestial body. This is the first step. the robot that would control it. This is the ship that would land it, or Blue Moon is the same, and they did it first, but either way, this is just a lander. This is designed for taking off of a celestial body that you just landed on. Now, what we need to figure out beyond this point is, as this landed and then will land us again, can it take off again? And so that's going to be their next stage. They got to figure that one out. If they can get it to take off again, as they've been working on, then it's perfect. So now we're talking about refueling at the moon. They need to get new fuels, unless Russia can figure out exactly what they're doing with the nuclear propulsion system, or the ion drive, as well as the nuclear shielding that they're trying to, the active shielding they're trying to create from the isotope that they're messing with that apparently just melted down. So this right here is nothing more than a lunar lander, and it is our best attempt and our very first ever attempt at creating it. So it's a historical feat, as well as a blatant slap to the face to anybody who thought that we could do it before, because this is now the first time that we've been capable of doing it. Human couldn't do it before. It had to be on strings, and everyone's like, how could they ever fake the moon landing? Well, have you ever seen how they made the lander in practice? That's one way to fake the moon landing. But aside from all the propaganda arguing, let's just talk about the science. When the launch occurs, take note of A, the amount of thrust it takes, the retro thrusters that have to guide it, and then the landing is the most important part. That is just amazing, though. The fact that we have perfected this is just outstanding. I can't wait for the future to see what we do with these tools. Can you imagine if you were actually taking your time and landing on a foreign body? Coming down right here would be so scary. And here's my main point. First thing I want to point out, this is a concrete pad they're landing on. It's a concrete pad. So normally I don't argue the propaganda because there's plenty of science. I mean, Princeton, Berkeley, UCLA, GSI, CERN, LIGO. I mean, there are countless prestigious universities or tops of their fields having to do with particle physics research. All of these people, they're loud and clear about why we're not in deep space, why human flesh cannot be in deep space, why the human neurological system fails within the Van Allen belts and within the electromagnetic reconnective points of our magnetosphere. It's very straightforward. Nobody bullshits. Everybody is just saying, yeah, that's what is. But maybe we can create, and then they go off. If you haven't seen my other video, watch it. It's NASA stating it over and over and over. However, here's some simple fucking truth to a basic reality that I thought most people could comprehend, and that is, this is Earth. See, Earth has greater gravitational pull than the moon. And I'm sure that most of you know that, but if you didn't, it does. So, yeah, we're bigger, we got more gravity. That being said, this dust, okay, I know this has been one of the countless arguments for all human history of the past 50 years has been, whether or not there would have been dust on the landing legs. Well, why are we fucking arguing this? At what point in time is this a fucking argument now? Hey, look, there's the fucking lander landing exactly as the lander would have landed. And yet, there's all the dust. This isn't even lunar fucking soil, which I'm sorry is lighter. So it's been ionized. It's lighter. It moves easier, and there is more of it to move. All of this is fact. They have picked a location that would have the least sediment compounds, but be within a place that is capable of doing the launch. So this right here is dust flying at a phenomenal rate. On Earth, this would fall quickly. On the moon, it would not fall quickly. So watch as this dust, as it lands, and the dust just gets worse and worse. What happens to the lander? Now we have winds. We have atmospheric pressures that causes things to fall, not only because of gravitational state, but because of molecular structures. So things will bond with it, which will make it either pull away faster or fall heavier and fall faster, not heavier. Dust. Do you have any idea how many weeks it would have taken for this to settle around the lander if it was on the moon? 1/16th gravity per se. That's the end all. I don't know why we're arguing. There's no argument here. There's all the science that states why we're not out there and why 230 miles up is as safely as we can go. The end. But then there's just this common sense shit. This is the type of stuff that just boggles my mind. You can play ignorant all you want. You can be a nationalist zealot all you want. But when you're confronted with this, what the fuck do you say? Oh, well, theirs were different because the dust didn't wanna or something. What the fuck are you gonna argue now? This is a consistent cut to a new camera. Time has passed. Wind has blown it away. Everybody's, watered it down. It's burnt to shit. It's burnt to shit. So why isn't there anything like this in the propaganda from the Apollo missions? This is just nonsense. So we finally created a lunar lander. It's functional. Russia just created a robot. It's trying to learn how to dock itself in low Earth orbit. If we can create these systems to work functionally with each other, and we can then create an electromagnetic shielding from an isotope per se, like Russia's working on. Then we could expand further past the 230 mile mark. Maybe even into the 3,000, 1,000, 3,000 mile mark. Maybe by using those materials and understanding them, by being in them, we'll have a greater capability of creating shielding against them. Then we can use this and the robot and those systems to go to the moon or to go to a passing I think that we could touch an asteroid long before we could ever touch the moon, because I think that things pass in between us within our magnetosphere that we have a greater chance of actually touching before. We need this to go and touch any of these large asteroids. We don't talk about circling us. I know that as I found JO25 2014 and as it was renamed for me as a secondary honored title, I know that if I can find one, and I know that I have 3 friends in various places that, in various countries, that they have also found and recorded meteors hitting the Earth, asteroid flybys. All of these people have them also titled after them, and all of them, it's not a fluke. There's so much happening up there all the time. If you just open up your telescope, look out, spend 5-6 hours just watching, you'll find something like that. And so I think these are actually tools that are designed with the robot, with the lander, with all of that too, within the 3,000 to 5,000 mile mark. When we can get up there, I think we're going to start trying to mine and core and understand the surrounding celestial bodies that are within our habitable zones before we actually push out to the moon, which I'm starting to lean towards it being a dead planet. And not something that is as close as we think, and not something that is as habitable as we think, and it might just be larger than we think. Now these are all my opinions, and I have nothing to base it on, and it goes against everything that we have written, but these are just my personal feelings that the moon may be bigger and further away than we can fathom. Still stuck in tidal lock. We are still, going to spin the same. Our dance won't change. However, I don't believe that our moon is as small and as close as we have claimed. I think that the Apollo propaganda is going to inevitably fade in time, and I think that that might be something that we come to find as truth, in that Mars is much, much further away than we're claiming. Venus is actually closer, but we can't talk about Venus because the the atmosphere shows what our future may hold, as well as if it is closer and we cannot actually see anything about it, then there's really not much you want to say about what is the closest celestial body and you can't actually monitor. So that's great that, you know, Russia sent a probe to the surface, but now we're saying, you know, we couldn't take the surface pressure, even though apparently bus fuses could do it back then. But there is nothing out there. This is a lander. I think it is to try to figure out how we can, with robotics, get us to the next couple thousand-mile mark and try to start helping us understand what's up there, why only Marco Durante and GSI can create these things in the labs, and why it's so important for humans to work with each other on these tools before climate change ends up taking our ability to survive what is inevitably going to happen away from us. So that's what I think about the new StarHopper. I think it's mostly propaganda. As you can see, the dirt here and the burnt ground has settled the argument on whether or not that fucking picture that everyone goes off on is or is not a credible picture. There would be dust for a week and there would be burnt legs, and everything that has to do with this relative fact counters that propaganda. The end. So, thank you.